Hello everyone and welcome back to Academicscope. Today we're covering topic 2.5, competition in GCSE economics. This, supply and demand, which were the last two videos, are some of the most important and common topics in the microeconomics paper 1, so you must ensure you revise them properly, as I guarantee they'll ask you a 6 marker on at least 2 out of these 3 topics. The specification for this is quite small, but the content is quite detailed. You must be able to explain competition between producers in a market economy, including the reasons why producers compete. You have to analyze how competition affects price, evaluate the economic impact of competition on producers and consumers, and explain the meaning of monopoly and oligopoly and how they differ from competitive markets. So, what actually is competition? Competition is when different firms are trying to sell a similar product to the same consumer or group of consumers. That's the definition I recommend you memorize. In a competitive market, a large number of producers compete with each other to satisfy the needs and wants of a large number of consumers. In a competitive market, no single producer or group of producers can decide how a market operates. Equally, no individual consumer or group of consumers can determine the price or quantity of goods or services in the market. There are two different types of competition: price competition and non-price competition. Price competition is when firms lower prices to gain customers and thus market share. Any firm that can't achieve this will find itself losing customers. Firms can't sell at lower than their cost for a long time, as it will cause them to leave the market. This form of competition is more likely to take place when there is a large number of firms. Non-price competition is when firms compete with any other factors except price. This can include the quality of the product, variety, design, innovation, branding, and even the convenience of their service. Competition. Why do producers actually compete? There are 3 main reasons, and these are required by the specification: to enter a market, to survive in the market, and to make profit in a market. For example, Google Workspace and Microsoft have competed their entire lifetimes, and they compete for these specific reasons. Analyzing how competition affects price. This is one of the 6 markers mentioned in the specification. An advantage of competition is that it has the potential to drive down prices to the point where revenue equals cost. In a market, when firms compete, the supply shifts right from S to S1. The increase in competition has caused the supply to shift right. This results in an increase in the quantity bought and sold from Q to Q1. The extent of the fall in price depends on the price elasticity of demand, and you can see this by drawing different demand curves. It's actually possible for competition to lead to higher prices due to marketing costs, which are passed on to the consumer. If firms such as Microsoft or Google rent out many ad spaces and put millions into marketing, they will increase the prices of their services to make up for this cost. Inventions and innovations can also lead to higher prices due to the high cost of R&D. And as consumers produce similar products and gain economies of scale, the price could also fall. Now, a very important point you must recognize is that this diagram is for the overall market. If the question asks you to draw the diagram for a specific firm, the supply will not shift right. Instead, the demand will shift left, because that firm has not increased its supply, but its demand has fallen due to the overall supply and substitutes in the market increasing. So make sure to read the question carefully. And always define competition at the beginning of an analyzed question about this. Now, the second 6 marker which the specification mentioned: evaluating the economic impact of competition. For consumers, there are both benefits and costs. The benefits are prices will be lower and better quality goods and services are available. This leads to a higher quality of life and a higher standard of living for these consumers, because they will have more disposable income to spend on more goods and services. Innovation will lead to more choice and variety of products. Increase in the standard of living and quality of life, which we have already mentioned. Consumers have more disposable income to spend, and derived demand for skilled labour increases. Because there are more firms looking to compete, they want to increase the quality of their products. Therefore, they will demand skilled labour in order to produce this. So wages for consumers may actually increase. Some costs for consumers. Advertising can persuade consumers to buy products they don't need. Lower prices may lead to less ability to innovate and even lower quality. Prices may rise due to marketing, and producers may begin to use harmful chemicals or lower quality materials to decrease their cost of production, which decreases a consumer's standard of living. And now, evaluating the economic impact of competition, but for producers. The benefits are, it leads to increased efficiency and productivity, and more ways to decrease cost, which will increase their profit. It's likely to lead to growth in the economy, which leads to greater demand, more revenue, more profits for more efficient producers, which will expand output, increase production, and gain economies of scale. This is an example of a chain of reasoning. You go from one point and show how it leads to more steps, and you end up with a benefit or a cost. But you want to show, instead of saying it leads to growth in the economy, which gains economies of scale, you show how, and this is what impresses examiners. There's more innovation, which attracts more demand and more investment, and they have better quality goods and services to supply. Some cost to producers are firms which are slow to adapt to new technology or demands for consumers could be forced out the market. For example, Nokia used to be one of the leading phone brands, but after Apple, Samsung, and other phone brands started innovating, Nokia decided not to, and they were forced out the market. Thus, you barely see any Nokias around anymore. And lastly, robots can replace workers, creating unemployment. While you may think this can decrease costs for producers, this actually leads to decreased demand, as now consumers have less income to spend. Now, we need to know about competitive markets, oligopolies, and monopolies. A monopoly is a sole producer of a good or service. Monopolies may exist because they have barriers of entry. These include legal barriers. For example, for a long time, only Royal Mail was allowed to deliver mails to your house. There could be greater efficiency than potential rivals due to very large economies of scale, which reduce costs for larger producers. Could be due to location or copyrights and patents. Legally, a monopoly is when one producer has 25% of the market share. An oligopoly is where a small number of firms control the large majority of the market share. For example, supermarkets in UK are an oligopoly. There's 5 main ones: Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Aldi, Morrison's, Lidl. They have barriers of entry, but they are not sufficient to prevent other firms from entering the market and increasing competition. For example, Aldi and Lidl recently entered the UK supermarket market. The number of firms in an oligopoly must be low enough to ensure the actions of one firm have a significant effect on the other firms. For example, Aldi lowered their prices to extremely low. Therefore, the rest of the supermarket firms had to follow. Competitive markets are a large number of firms compete with each other to satisfy the needs and wants of the consumer. These are 3 very different types of markets, and I recommend you learn this very well, as it's a common 2 marker and often shows up in the multiple choice as well. Thank you for coming back to Academicscope, and I hope you watch next time where we move on to the next topic, because every student deserves an A star. Make sure to check the Discord link in the bio to join a community of like-minded students, where we discuss exams, revision techniques, and live past paper walkthroughs. Thank you for watching.